welcome to Teach Progress. Currently, we're going over a new system we've been going over about emotion control and how
In short,
understand
yeah.
understanding how focusing on yourself and understanding your own emotions can help you better communicate with people and also just better understand yourself.
Yeah, a few bits of big news that landed on my desk recently. One, emotions are felt, like in your body, and you can start to recognize them by looking at how your body is reacting. And number two, there's more than three emotions. I used to think angry, sad, happy, and I don't understand this green zone, but some people call it chill. These are things that I have heard are normal emotions. I understand that as a man, my job is to only express anger, but I get to feel these other things as long as I tell no one about it. And that system is called patriarchy. And a bunch of feminist movement occurred telling men it's okay to express your emotions. It's good to have emotions and be a whole person. And what happened was a bunch of patriarchal women, because there's way more patriarchal women than there were people who were anti-patriarchal, punished those men for having emotions. In short, patriarchal women cannot handle a man having emotions. They want a strong man who dies early because he keeps it to himself. Now, if you would like to be in a long-term happy relationship, you would like you and your partner to both be in touch with your emotions and capable of recognizing them. Otherwise, you're going to live an unhappy life. The way patriarchy tells us to do things as men is to sublimate, that is, change over any other emotion other than anger into sexual desire. And it's essentially a cliche that men only have emotions right after sex. Then it's okay. And then after that's over, back to your entire goal is sex or anger. That is the patriarchal script. And fun fact, if you're a young man that is not getting a lot of sex, that is an awful script. And if you're an older man who's getting plenty of sex, it's also an awful script because the whole thing was a lie. It was an illusion, and you'll not live a happy life just having all the sex you want, because sex is just one of many things that can make for a full and happy life. You need to be able to be in touch with your emotions. So there's a process for getting there. One thing we learn about emotions is you can have as many emotions as you have words for those emotions. And the problem is I put these things up, and dudes are like, whoa, I did not know there were so many words for emotions. Similarly, if I put a color spectrum up, I had no idea that teal was a color. I thought it was just Captain's friend. So, here we see if we can start to recognize when we're becoming peeved and then irritated before we get angry, we don't push straight into furious. And that's how we recognize in our bodies, oh, I'm starting to feel a little tightness in my stomach, a little aggressiveness in my nose, right? I'm tensing up my face. I'm starting to get irritated. When we can put a word to it, then we can tell other people how we're feeling. And that's important because all emotions are social. The same man who beats his wife for a minor slight at home would never start beating up his boss for straight out insulting him. Crazy, isn't it? It's not because he doesn't have control, it's because emotions are felt socially. So, there's a process here. The first step is recognize your emotions. Recognize that you're feeling something. Because so many men have been taught for so long to simply disconnect from their emotions. Some women, too, if you've been through a system that punished you for having emotions. So, recognize them. Understand them. Understand, where is that emotion coming from? What part of my body am I feeling it in? Label it. Recognize some of these words. Try and say, oh, I'm already irritated. All right, I'm actually feeling quite sad. Oh, and then Recognize, understand, label, express. Express it to other people because you are socially embedded, so other people can support you and you can be open about how you're feeling. And then you're capable of regulating your emotions. And emotional regulation happens if you're interpersonal and it's partly to do with the other person. And it's not blaming the other person, just saying, we're dancing together and I'm stepping on your feet and it's making me sad, or you're stepping on my feet and it's making me angry, right? What you do to fix that is what's called setting a boundary. Hey, I won't be stepping on your feet because I won't be doing this. You shouldn't step on my feet. You shouldn't do this. And then you have to hold firm to that boundary. If someone continues to step on your feet intentionally after you set that boundary, you have to be willing to stop dancing. You have to walk away from that conversation securely. Not because you're like, oh, I'm going to reward. No, I'm going to take away. Not, oh, I'm afraid of having emotional intimacy. But no, we set a boundary. You violated it. We talked about it. You violated it. And we're going to have to take a break here for a while until you figure out how to hold to those boundaries. That's how you do it interpersonally. If it's in the world, and this happens a lot, right? It's not an intimate relationship. It's just something that you can't change about the world. You can do some grounding exercises. You can, simplest thing in the world, start focusing on your breath. Breathe in through your nose, right? As you breathe in through your nose, recognize your nose has air in it. Your lungs are filling. Let out through your mouth. Let that energy out. And in and out. As you start to get upset, as you start to notice you're peeved, I get very stressed. I notice my face starts crinkling up, and I start being in the front of my face. And when I notice that, I say, let that all in and out, right? Another thing you can do, look, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things you can see, right? Just 5 senses. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can feel, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. Go through those 5 senses because it starts grounding you back in your body. Because very often as our emotions are spinning up, we're becoming disembodied and focused just in our minds and in ignoring what our bodies are doing to reinforce where we're going emotionally. So that's the ruler system. Recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate. Ruler. And we do that by recognizing our emotions. Teachers who are taught this first, and you have to teach the teachers first, that then teach this to students. We're able to take students who had a 30% failure to graduate rate and bring them up, 30% graduation rate and bring them to an 80% graduation rate. Just by being able to intervene both as teachers and students and say, hey, I know what I'm feeling and I know how to deal with it. Emotions are absolutely key to the human condition, and until we have that down, we can't do the rest of what we're up to here, which is helping people think more clearly. All right. Love to take some time to have a conversation about that.
Any questions?
I just joined in.
Emotions are good to feel, so notice them. Recognize them. Understand where they're coming from in your body. Label them with the appropriate word for a chart. And express them because emotions are communally felt. And then regulate them, either by setting boundaries or doing emotional management for yourself, like breathing exercises.
Purple.
Yeah, I mean, there used to be a third participant in your room, a guy named Penguin Hunter. That guy was very verbally and personally abusive. I don't think he was in touch with his emotions.
Did you just kick him for just observing things?
I guess so, but I think that's the guy who trolls.
He was trolling. I think we could all do better with being in touch with our emotions.
That's true.
I, for one, learned about most of these emotions in the last week.
Yes.
Yeah.
My emotions overtook me. I was irritated, and I kicked him.
That's very understandable. If you become irritated with someone, run a room and kick them out of your room. Let's do Crowdline and then Spino. Yeah?
I mean, I would say before you do this ruler thing, you need to think about your mindset and also intentions. People can do small things that will set you off, right? And they do not know the day you're having. And if their intention is not to cause harm, I think you really should just let it roll off your back if you have the ability to, because some people don't. But you don't have to do this. Just think of intention.
Right. And so if you can do some perspective taking, that's another way of regulating your emotions. You have to notice
Exactly.
you're having them. A lot of people will get upset, right? Respond instantly, not even
Yes.
notice, not and then much further away would be taking the other person's perspective on this. I heard about someone that was bumped into in the street, and the other person got angry, and the first person's like, "Whoa, whoa, I didn't mean to," and the first person said, "Boop," booped her on the nose, said, "Didn't mean it," and skipped away. Now, perhaps booping people will be helpful. I'm sure that that won't get you shot, but if you can take that distance. Spino was next, and then Dam.
Well, I don't know if people can be trusted to audit their emotions. I would, because I think we ate so many inflammatory agents that we are pulled emotionally into an inflamed state.
Well,
Artificially.
Spino, I will defend what you had to say, despite it being batshit insane. There is a direct correlation between inflammatory diets and depression. And anti-inflammatory diets are some of the best treatments for depression that we have. Does that make you inflamed? Well, if you're a man and the only emotion you're allowed to express is anger, then you're going to take your sadness, your loneliness, even your depression, and express it in an angry way because it's the only thing you're allowed to do. And so you could get too inflamed that way based on the research. Although that again, that was batshit. How would anyone come up with that?
Maybe the lead correlation. That
Lead,
that
absolutely.
makes more
Yeah.
sense.
And the fact of the room is, and everyone knows this, the cure for everything is eating more beans. Is Scrappy, are you trying to say something? I know Crowline would like to. I just want to make sure. Okay, so Dan, I think, was next up, then Crowline.
No, it's cool. It's cool. Nah.
Yeah.
I forgot my question.
That's okay. All right. Crowline.
No, but I mean, he has a point. It does take time to realize your feelings and then
Yep.
cycle through them and
Yep.
realize at the end of the day, the only control you have is how you feel and your reaction to all things, right? But it does not come naturally to people.
Well, I would say the fact that it doesn't come naturally, I would say we don't actually have the ability to control how we feel immediately. We simply have a way we can change our principles when we see ourselves
Our reaction.
acting.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to feel something immediately, right?
Right.
And then as we start to think about it, we start using our principles to guide us in how we interact. So that's my suggestion is that we have this principle where we take a moment and we recognize it, we understand it, we label it, we express it, and then we regulate it. By going through all those steps, we stop going ping, 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 and we start allowing our principles to come to the fore instead of simple emotional reactions. I like that. All right. Well, with emotions in check, clearly this will never be a problem for us, so I'm happy to hear about that. Let's go on to what we do for making sure we don't have a lot of mistakes in our thinking. We learn about the mistakes in our thinking.
Do you want to
Hollywood.
Oh yeah, sure.
Hollywood, would you like to go over this, or Crowline, would you like to?
Nope, I'm good.
Cool. And I think maybe Hollywood fell asleep.
Oh wait, no, here
What-
he's waking up. Or not. Hollywood.
War isn't murder, bit good and don't die.
No, he's gone. He's just turning into
Yeah,
sleep.
he just changed his head.
Okay.
That's hard. That's hard.
He's
One
napping.
time,
Ah.
one time, someone thought, "Whoa!" They fell asleep in this thing, and they woke up, and they had had a lot to drink. And when they woke up, they said they thought all this was real. So they really had to pee. They couldn't find a bathroom. So they walked over to that plant right over there, fell right off of a balcony and died.
What?
Is that true? No, but our story's meaningful, obviously.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. What's up?
Hey, shut the fuck up.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
That made me feel elated. Where is that? Yeah.
Hey, can you guys hear
Yes.
me?
oh, no. Who?
Okay.
Which one? Okay. I'm gonna preemptively do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so
do you want me
apparently
to start?
there are stupid questions like, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I say that all the time though, because I take off my headset and then I
Oh,
come
yeah.
back and sometimes I cannot be heard.
That's
Yes,
true.
yes.
That's true. I have a student who said, I think I have a dumb question. I said, don't worry. They're all dumb questions.
Exactly. Although I like to call them special.
Like Mr. Calm.
Yes.
Yeah. Would anyone like to volunteer to go through these mistakes in thinking?
I'll take the first
Read 'em
one, I
out.
guess. Yeah. I'll read some of them out. Yeah, let's go. Confirmation bias. It's true because I believe it. The tendency to search for, interpret, and remember information in a way that confirms one's preconceptions. I don't know why it took a while to read. Believing your rhetoric is not racist because a few of the people you're racist against agree with you. Okay. Attribution error. If they did it, they caused it. The tendency to overemphasize personal characteristics and ignore situational factors. Saying somebody is lazy because they're poor, ignoring systematic issues. What? Substitution error. Accepting an answer to another question. When faced with a difficult question, people often substitute it with a simpler one and answer that instead. Saying an ideology has a mandate because a candidate won an election. Let's see. Reading these slides is basically just like me learning how to read out loud, apparently.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yay.
You did a great job.
Hooray. False equivalence. Two things seem the same but aren't. When two things are compared as if they are equal, even though they aren't. Saying that there's two sides to climate change, even though there's only one side. Mott and Bailey. Invisibly going from indefensible to agreeable. A debate tactic where someone defends a difficult to defend position, but then retreats to a different, easy to defend idea when challenged. Saying, get rid of the Department of Education, and then saying, education needs reformed is all I'm saying, when asked. Zero-sum thinking. If they win, I lose. The belief that one's gain must come at another's loss. Thus, no mutual benefit is possible. Thinking that if minimum wage goes up, my wage goes down in value. Black and white thinking. It's all or nothing. A cognitive error where somebody sees a situation as only two categories, good or bad, ignoring any middle ground or spectrum of possibilities. My political leader must not be a war criminal because I like what he stands for. Gish Gallop, making arguments to run away. A debate tactic where one overwhelms an opponent with a rapid series of mini-arguments without regard for their accuracy or strength, making it difficult to refute each one. Saying climate change is good, and it's good for plants, and we can't do anything about it. Okay. Correlation and causation. One followed the other. So
Fucking niggers.
Jesus Christ. 1 second.
Niggers,
What was that one?
niggers.
Oh, Jesus, right behind me.
Fucking Christ. Okay.
Right in my ear.
I'm sorry. Okay. And if,
All right, I got a question.
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I'll go.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, feel free to stop me at any time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everybody, by the way. I'm from Amsterdam. All right.
Hello.
Sorry to
Just
hear.
someone.
All
Hi.
right, they're doing better than we are right now.
Good to hear.
All right. Yeah, I just want to say that. That guy just came in and he said nigga, nigga,
Oh,
nigga, right?
don't repeat that. Yeah,
Okay.
If you say that
Yeah.
again, you're be
super
banned.
kicked.
Yeah,
Well, hold
absolutely,
on.
right.
So in context, right? So he said that. What's your
Yeah.
point?
How can you handle this guy without banning him? So
Oh,
how
great.
can you get
Yeah.
his anger?
So, damn,
He was
here's
trying
the
to like troll.
problem.
He was just kind of yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. You cannot engage with people who are being dishonest. And if people's argumentation starts with emotion, they're not seeking a balanced emotion, they're seeking to gin up hate or disgust. There's no conversation to be had. So you really can't engage somebody who's chosen not to engage. You can only engage people who want to think of themselves as rational, good people that are having an honest conversation.
Right.
Yeah, we all know what he was doing. He's a kid, and he was just showing off his machismo to violate the rules, right? He was showing he's a real man. He was playing into the patriarchy of violating norms so that he could show off that he's willing to do it. That's what kids do. And
Do you really
it's
think that's the?
Huh?
Do you really think that's what he was doing?
out of the younger people that I see doing that, almost all of them. Now, the
To
ones
be
that
fair, it's a
turn that
generous
into a
assumption.
It is,
Yeah.
but it's a very generous assumption. But of a few of them, they start making it a lifestyle choice, and then they start reinforcing factually incorrect white supremacist ideologies. And when they do that, then they start going down a rabbit hole. But to start off, they're just like, you can't tell me what to say, mommy. And that's what they're doing.
All right, so wasn't it a little challenge to get through his mind?
Yeah.
And the
So
behavior that he shows.
when I started doing this with Penguin, what we'd have was we were on a game called Comedy Night, whose advertisement has a racist joke in it on Steam. And it's a lot of young men being incredibly racist, like yelling the N-word and just all sorts of bad things. So in that game, instead of just kicking somebody and they can't come back in, we were able to kick them, but then they could come back, or we could ban them. And what we'd do is, since there was no one else to talk to except for these kids, we'd kick them and say, come back when you're ready to talk. Come back when you're ready to talk. After the fourth or fifth time of doing their stupid thing, they'd eventually come back, lay out their limited thinking, and we'd help them think better, or yell at them. Mostly yell at them. But in the best cases, they started to be honest, and we had an honest conversation. And we've been working, Murkov and myself and Hollywood and the other volunteers for teachprogress.org. We've been working towards getting better at engaging people who have even a shred of will to have an honest conversation, which is a lot of people. It's just really easy if you have a shred of will not to have a conversation to find that, pick on it, and kick the person out, when really we need to be seeking the people who want some sort of conversation and want to be honest.
Oh, and also, basically, that's a kid. We don't really have kids in these rooms, so we kick kids
Yeah, that's
for the
true.
most part. And then also, it breaks TOS of Twitch, because we also try and educate through Twitch and videos and things like that. So we
As you
can't
can see
really
from
have that kind
OBS
of
running.
Yep, we can't really have kids running around breaking TOS, terms of service, and hate speech. Hate speech is not acceptable here. And that's also a learning mechanism to them, for the most part, of, hey, we will not engage your hate speech. You will be kicked. You will be shunned. You know, that kind of
All
thing.
right, clear.
Yes, cool. Okay, I'm going to start from the beginning because I already lost my spot. Correlation and causation, one follow the other, so one cause the other. Assuming that because you can come up with a story on how one thing caused the other, it does. Arguing that not being married is why people are poor rather than poor people can't afford marriage to get married. Very logical.
Afford. Yep.
Okay. Argument from incredulity. I can't imagine it, so it can't be true. Concluding something must be false because it's difficult to understand or believe. No universal health care because how would that work? Ignoring that they do it in many other countries. Sunk costs. I've invested too much to quit now. Continuing a behavior due to previously invested resources. Time, money, effort, even if it's not the best choice. Continuing to buy into a conspiracy even when it's what has been proven wrong. That we see this a lot with like wars, or maybe even sometimes government programs can have this where people have invested so much money that you cannot stop now. You have to continue, even though it's unlikely to happen. Personal attacks. Attacking the person, not the argument. Attacking an opponent's character or traits instead of engaging with their argument. For example, how dumb are you that you need examples? Fun one. Okay. False dichotomy. It's either this or that. No other options. Presenting options in one small domain as the only possibilities when more domains exist. Either borders are perfectly closed or we don't have a real nation. Learned helplessness. Nothing I do makes a difference. It never has. A mental state where repeated failures lead to the belief that one cannot change their situation. Not voting because they have all the power. Oh, you're changing one. Okay, cool. Moving goalposts. Changing the criteria as soon as they're met. Demanding more or different evidence after the initial criteria have been met, making it impossible to satisfy the new demands. Saying tariffs are good for the economy than saying they are more fair when shown tariffs are bad for the economy. Okay, cool.
That seems specific.
Yes.
It wasn't specific, but rather incredibly general and completely non-applicable to anyone's ideas until like a year ago.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Right.
Because I don't think I've ever heard of that happening before, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good 100 years since then, what with it causing the Great Depression and then making it worse.
Causing? Oh, wow.
Okay, hasty generalizations, assuming what's true for a few is true for all. Drawing conclusions about an entire group based on a small because some immigrants commit crimes, immigrants are criminals. Okay, let's see. Unjustified appeal to authority. Someone in power said it, so it must be true. Unjustified appeal to authority is a fallacy when those who use it do not provide any justification to support their argument. Believing that a dragon researcher you heard on Joe Rogan, even though the researcher is just a chiropractor. That's a little...
I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad dragon researcher.
Just a chiropractor.
I know.
Right?
I actually shouldn't have said it like that, yeah. I felt bad for chiropractors. To be fair, they probably make more money
I felt
than
bad
I
for
do.
dragon researchers.
That's true. Dragon research, if done with context, a dragon researcher is probably a really cool, like, research to be done of, like, how culturally people have made up the myth of dragons.
And understood it and shared that dragons exist and in the
how
way
that
that
spread,
they imagine them. Yeah.
Gambler's fallacy. Past outcomes affect future probability. Gambler's fallacy is a cognitive bias that occurs when somebody believes that the probability of an event changes after a series of outcomes. Believing that, we
How
must
is
keep trying to...
Probability belief.
Well, that's a great question.
Math.
Right.
Probability
So
is
the-
math.
That's
Believing in
correct.
false probability is a belief.
That's
But
right.
Believing in actual probability is not a belief.
Right.
I think it depends on someone's definition of probability, though.
Right.
Yeah,
So
Sadly.
it's math. Probability as defined.
that's
is
right.
math.
That's why this is a
It's
mistaken
statistics, it's
thinking,
math.
right? Where people
Yeah.
think that their belief about something is going to change the independent probability of events.
Fair enough, but the definition is still wrong.
It says
It
the gambler's
probability.
fallacy is a cognitive bias that occurs when someone
Well,
believes that the probability, believes that the
Okay,
probability.
so they believe it, but they're wrong.
That's right. That's right.
Got
That's
it,
and
got
all of
it,
these are
got
people
it, got
believing
it,
things
got
that are
it,
wrong.
got
That's
it.
right, sir.
Believing that if we keep trying the same risky policy, it'll eventually balance out the failures.
Yeah.
Straw man, attacking an exaggerated or misrepresented version of an argument. Misrepresenting an opponent's argument, often by exaggerating or simplifying it. Then attacking the misrepresentation rather than the actual argument. Saying, so you think we should enslave doctors when somebody says we should have free universal health care. Okay.
That's a thing people say?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've not heard that.
Yeah, you gotta go in these debate
the
rooms, and by I say you
I
gotta
know,
go do that,
Believe
I
me,
mean
I've
don't
been
go.
kicked from so many debate rooms, it's not even funny.
Yeah, don't
Never
go
heard
to
that
these
one.
debate rooms. Not healthy. Okay. Red herring, distracting with an irrelevant point. Introducing an irrelevant topic to divert attention away from the original issue, often to avoid addressing challenging question or a point. When told about genocide in Gaza, saying Muslims are against the gays. Let's see. We always,
Let's kill reducto.
yeah, I need to
So
kill that
why
one.
why are like both of those true? It's like that
What?
was a bad.
Well,
Muslims are against gays.
but it's
Yeah,
an
they are,
irrelevant
but it's
point.
not relevant
Yeah,
to
but
the
why
question.
is that? It's true
Like,
though.
if-
but
right,
why,
if we-
why is
yeah.
that like that was a bad?
No,
as
no,
far
no,
as
it was
no,
good.
fallacy
because-
goes.
Yeah,
Because it's not
how is it
fallacy
relevant?
is
No, you can say something that's true but unrelated to the argument at hand.
yeah, but that's
So
not
if the question
though.
is, it is a fallacy. It's a red herring fallacy when you bring up something unrelated to the point.
Yeah.
So if I say, well, if we're trying to argue or understand by having a conversation whether or not what Israel has done in Gaza is a genocide, and we're trying to look up the definition of genocide and look up the evidence about what's happened, and then someone says Muslims are against gays. Well, that's not related to the question of whether or not they're experiencing a genocide.
I understand where you're going. I
Yeah,
was.
that's
coming
what a
at-
red
I
herring
was a
is.
different angle. I understand.
Yeah, when you come in from a different
Yep,
angle.
Yep,
and-
I came in
sounds
from
right,
a different angle.
wrong,
Yep,
yeah.
yep, yep.
All right, spin.
You're good. You're good.
All right, you're good.
Okay.
What,
Sorry, we can go. What do you do?
no, I jumped in late, Markov.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's okay.
what is the purpose of going through all the definitions?
Yes, the
From
definite to observe them in common conversations, or even just like advertisements, news, anything like that, to see all of these different fallacies
Fair
and
enough.
how we
Okay.
can avoid using them ourselves when we look retrospectively at our own arguments.
Yeah. Yeah, the big thing is that you can never tell someone you're wrong because it doesn't work.
Some
right?
bullshit.
But what you can do is help people.
That's not correct.
Fuck.
What you can do is help people recognize when they're being tricked. And these are ways that people are tricked. All of us get tricked from time to time. And then they.
Yeah.
they
Okay. Would
convince
you admit
themselves.
though there are sometimes you might call it a red herring, but you might be on the wrong side of history, right?
I
But
mean,
maybe I do
for
say,
all of
but
these
Muslims
arguments-
think all gays are horrible,
Sure. Okay.
right? That was the last example, and I
Yeah.
don't believe that, but maybe
Okay.
I do say that, and maybe I end up being the right one.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's true
It doesn't.
or not because
I
it's
get
not-
that. I still followed the red herring. I still followed the fallacy. doesn't mean I'm wrong, right? That's my point. That's my only
Okay,
point.
so what it means though is that you've been non-rational, right? And
It
all
means
of us,
I started from a non-rational position.
That's
Correct.
right. There we go.
Doesn't mean I'm wrong.
And all of us have
Would you agree with
positions
that, though?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
because
okay.
every
All right,
one
that's
of
all I
us,
wanted. That's all I was
every one
looking
of us does many of these things. It doesn't mean that we came to the wrong conclusion. We just came to it
for
for
sure.
the wrong reason, and
Right,
that's
I have no
worse.
reason whatsoever. The reasons don't matter. The conclusions do.
Oh, the reasoning matters more than anything because it's how you're gonna with the spaghetti.
And we can
right,
differ
the
on
programming.
that. I don't want to hijack
The
room. I'm
programming
sorry,
that you're going to bring into your next encounter.
I don't have
you
programming.
Think
It's
rationally?
not a thing.
Literally, it is the way your spaghetti's wired. It's the way you think.
No,
right. That's
I
what
understand
I'm
what you're saying, but that's not a thing.
And he's not.
Also,
Yeah, he's
thinking isn't a thing. Thinking in a way isn't a thing.
Yeah, he's not necessarily
I'm not gonna
pointing
get into that
directly to you. He's
I
saying
just had
in
a
general
question.
that
That's
people.
all I had.
Yeah, and we're exploring that question.
No, I
It's
feel like
okay.
I'm being.
Okay, yeah. Let's go to the emotion table. Real
Let's
quick.
go to Martin Bailey, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
go there?
It's about 5 seconds for me.
He
leaving
didn't
the
call
room.
you an
Yeah.
idiot. He
So,
called me
what
one.
are you feeling here, Uncle?
What am I feeling?
Yeah. Here's a chart of emotions. What are you feeling?
Yeah, well, that's me leaving. I'm feeling
Ah,
like it's time for me to leave because I don't feel like doctor. It matter. First of all, you're not a doctor,
That's wonderful.
right?
Let's see.
Am I
What
correct?
do I feel?
No,
What do I
I'm
feel? I
asking a
feel
question. That was not a feeling.
Playful.
Are
I'm
you a
feeling
doctor
playful.
like you have a doctorate?
I'm feeling
degree?
unnecessarily playful.
No, do you have a
Last time I
doctorate
was in
degree?
this room like a year ago,
It
someone
was
said
a
the same
question.
thing.
That's not an
Yeah.
emotion. My
It's
emotion
very
is
fun.
pissed off.
Okay, there we
Where's
go.
mine that?
You're
But, hey,
furious.
but you
Furious
didn't answer my
anger.
question, Dr.
Okay, what was the question?
Are you a doctor?
I have a PhD.
No, you don't.
Yes, he does.
Okay.
Yeah, he does.
Email
In
me.
economics.
Bro, why would I dox myself?
Why would you
Dude,
dox yourself?
I know him.
Yeah,
he has.
you got no
PhD.
proof. I have a master's
Where did
degree.
this come from?
Cool.
And
What's
how
your
is it
master's in, bro?
relevant anyway?
I don't have a master's degree. I have a bachelor's.
Okay.
You fucker.
What do you got a bachelor's
Because
in?
you don't have a PhD.
He does.
Okay, bro.
He's
Like,
literally-
is-
but
you don't
how
have to
does
kick
it
me.
make
I'm
Uncle,
leaving. I'm
uncle,
tired.
uncle,
No,
uncle.
no.
It's okay to
No.
have the emotions that you have.
No,
if you take a deep
it's
breath
not.
and focus on your feelings,
It's not.
you'll
You're
notice them
I
and take
didn't kick him.
control
Why
of
do
them.
they always jump to your username?
Oh, because it's a threat to their is a threat, right? So
Because-
high testosterone, right, combined with patriarchy makes us fight to maintain our status, and it's an immediate threat.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
weird thing about it is that they immediately think that we're doing a unjustified appeal to authority by your being a doctor, but I'm also saying these things. I have no doctorate. I am the.
No.
I don't have any degree of some besides high
Well,
school.
you do have blue hair.
I do. So that means I'm
Yeah.
touched with my emotions. No, that's not true.
There we go.
That guy was he was ready. He was
Yeah, he was
Spin?
primed.
Yeah, what is the rhetorical device when somebody says that your idea is batshit crazy?
Oh, well, that was what I said. And if I was coming from a place of anger when I said that, it would be ad hominem. I'd be attacking you as a person without any justifiable connection. But when I said it, I was actually feeling playful. And hopefully it came across because I immediately defended your position because I also hold that position. But I also recognize that every time I argue that position, people think I'm nuts. So we're crazy together, buddy.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, I think we're to genetic fallacy, dismissing an idea
Yes.
based on its origins rather than its content. A genetic fallacy is a logical fallacy that occurs when the validation of an idea is based on its origins or history rather than its actual merits. You're not going to wear an engagement ring, are you? Don't you know that it started for sexist reasons?
Hmm.
That one is written by my boyfriend, apparently. Not just kidding.
Oh, holy shit, Marco! I'm so sorry.
Dr. Sayus, is that you?
Oh no, I've been married for 17 years. I'm very happily married. Yeah.
That seems a little bit weird because it's a way of saying the reason why the person doesn't like an engagement ring.
Yeah.
So okay, it's historical.
Yeah.
Does that mean that it's
Let's
invalid?
go back to it. Let's go back to it.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that it's invalid that they don't like it, right? The problem isn't I'm not going to wear an engagement ring because it started for sexist reasons. It's I'm going to judge you for wearing an engagement ring because it started for sexist reasons. I'm telling you that you need to make the meaning of it that I make of it. And if I can do that because I can find somewhere in the history of the idea something that had some negativity, and then I can push it into the idea as it's being used today. But unfortunately, for me, words mean whatever people use them to mean, which means so many of our words are just dang useless because they mean such general things. And so who am I to tell someone, well, your engagement ring is there so that you can sell it for 4 months' worth of salary in case you're spoiled by being engaged, right? Like, what? What?
But that's not the reason.
But that's not the reason people want it today, right? It's just the way it came about. And so if that's not the meaning people are putting onto it, then it's not for those patriarchal reasons. Totally different patriarchal reasons.
Yeah. I would also say, like, in society, when people say, like, during the holidays, they say Merry Christmas and things like that. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are the most Christian person on earth. They could just be like, oh, we celebrate Christmas as a fun time, give gifts, that kind of thing, happy holidays kind of thing.
Merry Christmas. The blood of the lamb was shed for you. You must repent. See, that's just a thing we say.
Yeah, we just say that all the time at the mall every day.
At the mall, walking
Merry Christmas,
around.
the lamb bled for you. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Hey, I want later. I want to talk about the patriarchy. Like
happy
later,
to.
once we get to this.
Yeah, let's walk through these.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. There we go. Tradition fallacy. Arguing that something is right solely because it has been accepted or practiced for a long time. An appeal to tradition fallacy assumes that the old way of thinking was correct when it was introduced and that it's still correct today. Rejecting new math because we've always taught it this way. Cool. I see this one like with America and the metric system versus standard system. Where it's like, why it would be so much better if we moved to the metric system, but we can't.
That is correct.
Because we've always done it the standard system.
Yeah.
Anchoring and adjustment, relying too heavily on the first piece of information. A cognitive bias where an initial piece of information serves as a reference point for subsequent decisions. Believing that a pair of shoes at Neiman Marcus is good deal at $100 because it was originally priced at $200, even though it is on sale at Target for $50. Let's see, and that's it.
Yeah.
I just realized I'm so trashy that anytime I think that when I see the dollar sign, I immediately go $100, not $100. Oh my god.
You can call them buckaroos or smackers if you prefer.
Dollary dues?
Bills.
Ducats?
I call it $1. If it's $100, I call it $1. Someone said, how much did that cost? I say $1. Because if they ask for something under $1, I don't even know why they're asking.
Rich people problems.
That's correct.
Okay, cool.
All right. Yeah, patriarchy.
Good job, Marco,
Yeah.
reading all of that.
Thank you.
Right?
Because
Yeah.
it was long.
Yeah.
Right?
I'll
And
learn
some
how
of
to
it
read
I
one
wrote
day.
very poorly.
So yeah. So patriarchy. So, is it a bad thing? One. That's question one.
All right. Have you seen the Barbie movie? Because the takeaway was yes.
Yeah. Well, hear me out. Give me a second. All right. Can we define patriarchy Are there like degrees of patriarchy? Like
Yes.
is there the U.S. patriarchy, like the
Oh, yeah.
capitalism plus, there's
Yeah, there is white supremacist, shareholder-centered patriarchy, and a bunch of other systems that overlay with one another that maintain the ascendancy and the normativity of the people are taken as default. And so, and the people for whom it's natural to want to be like in our society, which is a upper middle class white man who's heterosexual, Christian, married, kids, well educated, all these things. I took a little quiz. It had like 20 different ones of these lines in it, and I got an A on it. It was pretty good, right? 95%. I'm dyslexic, so that's not so good. But
Me too.
yeah, but other than that, I think that may be why a lot of dyslexic people thrive in VR, because they get to talk instead of read.
That's true. Instead of like online forums.
Yeah. Yeah, so people should want to be like me, and I'm not sure why they don't. Right, except I am sure why they don't. In fact, beyond my being in the center of all of this, I'm not at the top. Right? I'm doing okay, but I'm not at the very top. What? That means I'm being used. The men are being used by patriarchy, not for their own ascendancy, but for the ascendancy of a small number of men. People with shares in companies, like it's their retirement or something, are being used by the people with billions in shares in companies. Most white people don't see the ascendancy part of white people from white supremacy. Even especially the ones that are avowedly white supremacist, they're not seeing a benefit from it. In fact, they're so far down, it's the only thing they have to glom onto. Sorry. All of these systems hurt the people, not only that they, are pushing out by calling them not normal.
Is this about
Hare Krishna.
Christians?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Man, how'd that guy know? He even sang the song. What? Yeah. So every one of these systems, we'll go back to patriarchy, not only hurts women, but also hurts most men. Similarly so, not only do men uphold patriarchy, but women uphold patriarchy.
Great point.
Yeah. So, for example, mothers will be masochistic towards their young boys to cut them off so as to not make them sissies. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Caroline.
Good stuff.
I mean, I would say both are bad. Matriarchy and patriarchy, right? You really should be honoring each other, because females have a different view, stance, brain, body, strength, all of it.
Yeah.
And men do as well. There shouldn't be all that. We should honor each other, because without each other, we simply do not exist. So all of that, to me, is a squirrel tactic. You're creating little groups to...
Yeah, sorry, I keep stepping on your thinking.
That's okay, go on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There is a third way and the thing is, we don't see matriarchy in many places. Although,
At the beginning you did, though.
Right at the beginning of human civilization, there were a few matriarchies, and they worked out pretty well until the men who murdered them.
Yeah.
So, that said, there is a third way to do things that brings people together. Now, there was also this kind of matriarchal man-hating that was an undercurrent of some feminist movement, and continues to be an undercurrent in some feminist movement today. That is not matriarchy, though. That is women enacting patriarchy, but for women. that is a perpetuation of the same system of dominance that was there in the first place.
That's right.
And we
And
see the
that's what-
same,
That's what being a patriarch is too.
Yep.
Everything needs to stop, and you lean into each other, and you respect, you honor each other for the differences.
Yep. And instead of like trying to enforce them on people.
Because
We
I
need to
think a
start-
lot.
it's okay, Ralph.
I think a lot right now, men are getting angry because they've been pushed down. They've been silenced. Now, sadly, that's because a lot of single mothers raise them. Right?
So, speaking of crazy arguments, Bell Hooks makes the same argument in The Will to Change, that very often a single mother will be extra patriarchal to their young men because they feel like they have to take the role of masculinizing the young men, and without a man there to have a more nuanced take on what it can be, you end up with someone simply perpetuating and perpetrating upon a child their hyperbolic idea of what manhood ought to be.
Also,
Yeah, it just does not work.
There's that phrase of equality looks like oppression to the privileged. So that is definitely in play when it comes to women getting equal rights, things like that. Showing
That's
up in the
for sure.
workplace, yeah. Making
That's for
about
sure.
the
If you
same.
have a patriarchal system where the man is in charge and then women get equal rights, now it looks like the man has been oppressed. Yeah. And there are direct benefits to the people that are being oppressed through patriarchy. The women that are oppressed through patriarchy, if they're part of their man doing really well, they're in a household where things are going better, so they have a vested interest in maintaining it. More importantly, forget rational. The feelings that we have inside come from these big stories that live in our society. So feeling like a real man or being made to feel like a real woman can come from belief in and living into that patriarchal world. Now it's a sad echo of what your life could be if you're fully in touch with your emotions and with a partner that could truly love you. But it is the story that's being sold to you and the only thing you know as love.
That's why the
It's your
story has
normal.
to change, right? If
Yep.
you look at animals, which I do believe we are animals, you have male and females, and everything has its role. It's neither is better than the other. Again, nothing exists without both of human sexes, right?
Well, that said, if both partners are in touch with their emotions, then you can configure your life in a way that allows people to be raised well, that allows people to live good lives. You can do it without being married, or with being married. You can do it in a same-sex household or a two-sex household or what have you. All of those
I
are
agree,
configurations
yeah.
that can work, but it does take, whichever the configuration, people that can be in touch with where their emotions and understand where they are and what's causing them to think what they're
Right.
thinking.
Be authentic and honor your partner.
There you go.
Honor your children. Honor everyone you meet, really.
I really
We're
like.
all on different paths. It's not us to judge. Be kind.
I've taken on the Hindu perspective on children, which is the child is its own spirit who has come into this world. You can make life awful for them, you can make life nice for them, but they're going to be their own person. Mommy and daddy aren't creating all the little environmental variables to create an outcome, and so it's up to them the life that they want to live, as long as they get a PhD in anything they want. That's what I tell my kids.
Only at a certain age, though.
That's funny. Not funny.
But I would say when you were talking about like animals acting in a certain way, there are variations among animals too of like you see where it's like say a female gorilla or something will take on the male role of, so the commonly used male role, and it'll still work out fine in their troop or whatever. So
Yeah, the research is pretty clear. It's better to have a 2 or more parent household. This idea that we should splinter down to a single person makes life very hard for the parent and for the child.
Yeah, no, I'm personally, I'm like, we should treat it like almost like lions, where it's like, hey, every cub in the pride is
takes a
one of your
village.
own. Yes.
Yeah.
Like they watch over every single cub like it was their own.
Yeah.
So
Unless
that's
they're a
the
male lion
tertiary,
and then they kill it. Damn it.
Patriarchy.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a dark turn.
Yeah.
So you got patriarchy, matriarchy, like different concepts. You were talking about a third one. Like, what's the third one? Like, so what is it?
It's laying down the idea of a gender being ascendant, and instead being in touch with the feelings that you actually have and being fully present with your romantic partner. Now you have a life where you're no longer, women are in charge and they're better. And we hear that sometimes. Oh, women are better. Women are the better sex. This is not true. Women are human beings. In fact, this, how to put it? When Ruth Bader Ginsburg was arguing for equal rights before the Supreme Court, right, as a lawyer, she said, women are not treated equally. And the Supreme Court justice said, no, women are treated like angels, like they're better than men. How is that not fair?
I mean, really, I think it comes down to honoring your partner, honoring
and who
the
they are and
different
what they can
sex,
bring.
right?
Mhm.
It's just honoring. It's
Yeah.
very simple.
Well,
And that is the third, because at the end of the day, you should honor everyone. You
There
should
you go.
respect everyone. You know?
Except, of course, for Crowline, who I disagree with on abortion and therefore cannot respect. But otherwise, I think we can all agree.
That's fine. I don't remember talking to you about that, but
Oh,
I
well,
believe
one of
you
us
because
remembered
I
it more
honor
than
you.
the other. Oh, wow. That's as is appropriate.
hey,
And you
just,
too,
Just for context, like, what's her stance on abortion?
I don't know. I think she's against it.
are you high?
For it? I don't know.
She's a woman in America. It doesn't matter.
Oh, I get it. That's called a not joke.
Because it's true.
Because it's not a joke. Oh my god.
I am not against it.
Okay. We're all right. So I'm really happy to hear that my jokes are going over well. Sometimes I deliver them flat, and people think I'm insulting them.
Only like
And
2 people laughed, though, so.
Well, yeah, but both of them were in my head, so it counts. Oh, very cool. All right. So that was the ruler method. Recognize your emotions, understand how they're coming to you from your body, label them with a word that gets close to what they are, express them so that you can say, this is what I am feeling, because that is, emotions are socially felt, and then regulate them. Ask yourself, how can I tone this down a bit? That one guy was telling us he was furious, right? And we needed to kind of calm him down. So when we brought this up, he started to notice we're going to talk about feelings, and he spun right out and got out of here. So that was pretty smart.
Which is rough because I think as a male, he just went immediately to, I'm an adult, you're treating me like a child, and the fact that you want me to explain my emotions, it's like, no, everyone should be able to, when they feel threatened or pissed or something like that, be able to explain their emotion.
That's the sad thing.
Even
about
if
it. He
it's
should've
not a
learned.
detailed explanation, it could be just like, I feel, annoyed or shocked or jittery or something like that. It shouldn't be that terrible to be asked.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the sad thing about that exchange. He could have learned. He could have kind of figured out where he was in that quadrant.
Yeah, he was like listening, kind of. So
He just wasn't ready, right?
Right. Right.
You
And
have
he
to
started
meet them where they are.
That's right.
You just plant little kernels.
And he started to spin, and really grabbing on before that is what needed to happen, but I engaged him at the level of, he was trying to correct some of our ideas, and that's always wanted, right? Like, if there's a better way to put something or a better way to write it, we want that. But he didn't, like, make it through the goalpost of making a change a couple times, and I feel like he wanted to be helpful, right? By providing his insight and being, as Crowline pointed it out, honored for his thought and wisdom. And he felt like he wasn't getting that.
Andres, do you have something to say, or is your hand just up? Oh, you're just waving. Okay. Are you a kid or an adult? Okay. Oh, he left.
Oh, there we go.
Adios.
I didn't even kick him
Alright.
that time. Okay.
So this is the ruler method, and again, when 6,000 teachers and students combined in the study, when the teachers were taught this method, and then they taught the students, the teachers were better in the classroom, and the students went from 30% graduation to 80% graduation. Huge difference just being aware of your emotions.
I mean, sadly, their parents should be teaching this, right?
Well, you know, if you came from a patriarchal system that teaches you don't have emotions, your only emotions you're allowed to have are angry and horny. Those are your two emotions. And if you want to express anything other than anger, then it has to be sexual. And that is just an anemic life to live. So thin of a gruel of emotion. It is insanity inducing in young men, and it is meaninglessness inducing in older men who have had that sex and realize that's just one part of the human condition. But there's
I'm
nothing
sure we've
in
all
the system.
heard, growing up as men, the term "boys don't cry" because that kind of sucked.
Yep. Suck it up, right? Yeah. And there are many women who will respond quite negatively to any emotion that a man presents. So men learn that the way to get by is to be quiet about how they feel and not share it with anybody. If we learn how we're feeling and start expressing it, the people around us, unless they know what we're doing, are themselves going to get upset because they don't know how to handle it. So it takes working with them so that they can learn as well.
Yeah.
But they'll be happier for it. Many a woman has demanded that her man be stoic and strong only to feel left alone and loveless later in the marriage because that's what they demanded of their man.
Because that's also the way they've been taught to accept
That's
what a
right.
man is. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And it doesn't have to be. It's a really stupid script. There are many, many other ways to be someone that takes responsibility, is proactive, cares, and there are times for different groups of people to do that. But if someone wants to have something that still has that gender dichotomy, which is fine, then there's all sorts of ways to have masculinity and femininity in a household without it being this stoic, angry person.
Yeah, I guess
Toxic.
that is a good thing they bring up is that, like in stereotypical like 1950s households, women are supposed to feel this side of the board only. They're only supposed to feel pleasant and keep everything positive for their husband when he gets home from a long day at work. So you can't have any anger or frustrations or feel despair or despondent upon your place in society. You're supposed to feel fulfilled just by being a mother or just by being a wife in itself and blissful.
Unlike human beings who have all sorts of have a whole life to work out how to feel fulfilled, figure out what to take responsibility for, and what they uniquely can do in the world to take that responsibility for.
Yeah, ideally you should you should be able to go through the gambit, not all really fast, but like throughout the day, you probably hit a couple of these.
Yeah.
Of each one. Even if you're just like, hey, I watched the news and I got angry. And then I went to, the park and I was alone, so I was lonely. But then I was like, oh, you know what? It's a nice day, so I felt restful. And then I was like, oh, you know what? There's kids playing over at the park or whatever. And then felt happy. Because you're like, oh, they're living their day.
Okay, so Murkov, you have all those feelings in, like, just going to the park, huh?
Oh, my God. Are my meds not working?
Sometimes.
It was a joke about how masculinity demands that we not feel, right?
True.
Or at least not express those feelings. And yeah, all of those are legitimate. And the real question isn't, is it right or wrong to be in any of those places? It's normal and okay to be peeved or irritated. Sometimes you should be angry, and on occasion, furiousness is necessary. But usually angry isn't needed. Usually you get a lot that you need done with irritated. And if you notice that you're moving towards irritated, in fact, peeved is all you really needed. And same thing. If you're starting to feel sad, it's good to talk about that so that you don't start moving towards depressed, right? But people are feeling sad, start separating themselves, and become lonely and sullen. Again, it's great to be pleasant and happy. By the time you're getting up through enthusiastic and inspired, and there are times to be inspired, but there are also ways that we think that can push us into a sort of bipolar sense where we're super happy. Because as we move up into this high energy state, it's way easier to switch from pleasant to unpleasant than it is to bring ourselves down from that high energy state. So things can go poorly. So we want to know what we're feeling and be okay with and intentionally be going in that way. Many a huckster has the capacity to bring people from enthusiastic to inspired to perhaps ecstatic and then ask for 10% of your income.
So, I think Crowline, she wanted to say something.
Yes.
I was going to say, again, I'll just keep on saying it. It's about honoring each other and honoring your spouse. I think probably women's lib was the biggest clusterfuck around. You basically created a society that both parents have to work. Right? At the end of the day, that's what it was.
Wasn't it corporate greed that made
That's right. That's right. That's right. Because you very easily easily could have had a world where women were free to move, free to start businesses and live their lives alongside their husbands or without getting married. And that extra labor didn't become extra labor because someone stayed home, but about half of the people were women that were working and half of the people were men that were working on average. That could have been the outcome. But we're in a system that centralizes the shareholder. And women in their feminist movement weren't able to take down patriarchy. In fact, labeling the system of thought patriarchy is like labeling the system of thought white supremacy. And no one wants to be thought of as sexist. No one wants to be thought of as racist. And yet, we perpetuate ways of thinking that keep white supreme, that keep men supreme. And those ideas, feminism, feminist movements have not been able to take down. And it's really what needs to happen. So I would say that women's liberation is a fantastic thing, but it needed to go much further. It needed to go not after small particular wins where women get to act patriarchal, but against the system of patriarchy itself.
But they had no knowledge of that.
Right. Well, the ability to unpack the systems that are going on has become stronger and stronger over time. And the ability to talk about things and systems.
But that's done. We're talking about the original act of feminism.
Like when women got the
vote. It didn't take long
vote.
for it to switch out.
Well, I mean, I would think that a lot of it is women understanding that their role isn't 100% to be a mother first, and allow them to have a career before they have kids, or maybe even once their kids turn like 13 and they're not, having to be in their lives 24/7. Allowing them to have kids then.
Or
have their
maybe
own
they
fulfilled
have
life.
kids and live their life, and the man is at home and takes care of the kids because he's in touch with his emotions and is capable of raising kids just like a woman is.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they choose not to have kids because, they're not a vessel for whatever.
Yeah.
That's just a stupid idea. I need more workers.
Yeah.
Who's gonna plow the crops next season if we don't have 10 kids?
Who's going to perpetuate my infinite growth model for these stocks? Pro, did you have a question? Okay.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Also, if anyone if that conversation's kind of over, we do have a different way we like going over things of good idea, bad idea. If anyone has a good idea or bad idea or one that we think we can go through, and what we try and do is, say there's a good idea. We place the good idea here, then we try and follow out the logic of what would happen with that good idea or bad idea. We try and build up the best way to phrase that argument to make it correct, and then we draw a conclusion. So just even any idea, like we have one where it's bad idea impeaching Bill Clinton. Impeachments would be seen as more arbitrary after Clinton, which is logical thinking. The fear of backlash from a politically motivated impeachment was reduced when it happens arbitrarily. So because there was more impeachments, it felt as it was less of a threat when it happens to a president. And arbitrary impeachments make future ones less seem political, undermining the trust in the process, which was our ultimate conclusion on that one.
Yeah. And the big point here is that all of our arguments, whatever we're thinking, they have limitations. Our logic is flawed. We're relying on some sort of mistake in our thinking. So how can we get rid of those mistakes in our thinking and make the best possible argument for what we're saying, and then draw a conclusion? And that's what we could be doing with people. I think we were asked earlier, how could we deal with somebody who's being, cantankerous, as it were? Well, you put down their idea, and then you try and think through their logic, and then you steel man it. You try and improve their logic. That way, when they're shaking their head, yes, that's what I'm saying, and it's the best form of the argument that they've heard before, then you address that. And it's vulnerable, and it should be. Maybe you didn't like the person's argument, but you made a good version of it they're willing to go with, and now you have to agree. Oh, well, that's okay. You learned something today. Wouldn't that be magic, right? But if it really was a bad idea, then you can talk about, well, these are the real problems with it.
I have a good or bad idea.
All right.
So, we talk about Congress, and obviously, you have the representatives Like it's proportionally spread out.
Mhm.
Senators, right, 2 per state. Should we
I got the
I know we
typos.
shouldn't do politics here, but should we continue to do that? Like, should Montana have 2 senators? Should states that have a less populace have a disproportionate say in national politics, right, or national outcomes?
Yeah.
Should we revisit that concept? You know, I mean, like, it was great back in 76 or whatever. Does that really align to what's best for the country now?
No,
Right.
it's not.
Well, go ahead, Marco.
Sorry, I was gonna make the argument. It's like that's what the House is for. The House is supposed to be the one that is separated by how many population bases there are. But I'm not necessarily sure. Sace, do you know if they're actually like the amount of California representatives are proportionally equal to the other states based on population?
They're not.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not. For example, Wyoming has 500,000 people, but it takes 750,000 people to get 1 representative. However, the minimum number of representatives is 1, so Wyoming still gets 1 representative for its 500,000 people. Oh, and 2 senators. So, when it comes to electoral college votes, those 500,000 people get 3 electoral college votes, where in California it takes 750,000 to get something close to 1 electoral college vote. So that is another way that things are unbalanced. Each senator counts as a vote in the final electoral college as well. That said, let's improve what you're saying here, Hollywood. Do you think that there's a value to states at all, or are you just saying abolish the states?
Let's see where you're going. No. I think there's a value. I think there's value in the states, and then the representations of individual states.
Yeah.
Yes, I think there's value there.
Okay, so then I think our real problem isn't that there's a system that gives states themselves a representation versus just the population, but rather how disproportionate it is and arbitrary. Two Dakotas is arbitrary.
Right.
Wyoming is a completely unnecessary place. I would propose. Let me see what you think here. Water. Water is an essential and real reason to have groups of people together. So we have a geologic survey that shows where the various watersheds are. So if we split the U.S. into about 13 different groups around those watersheds, we'd have people, well, first off, like in the Great Plains states, different states are using the same aquifer, and they'd be better off leaving it to regenerate and producing a little less food. But instead, they're all just pumping as fast as they can because they know if they don't, the other state will. That's a real problem with states.
Right.
So to me, the solution is fix the states, change them so that we have fewer of them. That way we don't have nearly as many little states with lots of senators. And we do it around something real, a real resource like water. What do you think?
That's an interesting way to do it.
I'm with that. Yeah.
But
I'll line.
Sorry,
Marco.
I apologize.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say that seems like eventually in a futuristic world that may happen, but I have learned helplessness that I just don't think that it's realistic for that to happen. But what should be happening is Puerto Rico needs to be a state, and DC needs to be a state, and territories that actually do have people in there, they should be representative. I mean, either that or take some of the bigger states that do have higher populations and break them out. Like California probably should be like 3 different states.
Right.
Well,
it's a proportionality, right? It's like It was like, damn, 200,000 people, damn, South Dakota or whatever. Well, I'll leave it alone. But,
Well,
yeah,
260,000 people in Wyoming get to control what it should take, all of California to control
Like
when it comes to
literally,
senators.
maybe like a small city in San Diego is about as much as Wyoming population-wise.
Right. And when we first started this system, senators weren't directly elected. They were appointed by the state legislators. So they were representatives of the states.
I did not know that.
And that it was meant to separate it so that there was a ruling elite class that had its own chamber, because it's a reflection of the British House of Lords. They just didn't want lords in there. They wanted the ruling elite because the founding fathers were afraid of democracy. They didn't believe that the people could rule. They thought they might elect some sort of madman.
Crowline, go ahead.
That worked
Sorry, you're right behind
totally
Say so he
disagree
can't
with
see
you.
to call you. There you go.
When they set this up, they even warned people to not do what we're doing. Don't stay in the same lane of what we created. The reason for our public servants was because traveling was so hard. But they were your pharmacists, they were your doctors, vets, lawyers. They were actually the people. And then they would take the voice of the people and travel all that way. In today's society, there's literally no reason to have that.
Yeah, so Crowline, when you had representatives in the beginning, it was about 50,000 people per representative.
I know. That's
right?
exactly what I'm saying. But
So
you have
there
to
were-
think of traveling.
Yeah. But
That
they were
was the
real
key.
people that you could get in touch with at 50,000. At 750,000, they're more distant than the mayor of most cities.
So why are public servants speaking our truth? Because they don't really know it, right?
Because
it
they're
really
so
should
distant
just
from
be one-to-one.
Well, you could still have someone that's an expert, right? Because I don't want to spend, I spend a heck of a lot of time thinking about politics. Most people don't have that kind of free time, and what they'll end up doing is just following whatever group
The
tells them
squirrel
what to do.
tactics.
Yeah. So if you wanted representation, it would be better to have more representatives. That way smaller groups could be in there. Or, like Europe does, be able to vote for a particular party, and then multiple people from that party get in. That way we integrate that into our systems. The way we would do it right now, because Congress passed a law around 1910 to limit the number of people that go into the House of Representatives. And if we remove that limit, we could make it so that every one of the existing districts stays the same, but the top 2 vote getters get in. You do that, you'll have a lot more representation, a lot more opportunity for ideas that aren't exactly what gets elected
Mainstream.
in that district. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But mainstream per district, right? Because there are districts in Texas that are essentially Christian fascist, and there are is there a district in maybe around Seattle that's to the left, right? But you would like to see more diversity of thought so that multiple groups within a district are represented.
What I'm
And no one
saying
loses
is
their
with
job.
today's technology, it's really not needed.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go over here. Let's go and get Crowline's idea on the board. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crowline. Sorry. We
No,
don't put
yeah,
your name
we
on
don't
there.
want to do names. Yeah, sorry.
Bad idea. Representative.
Bad idea.
democracy.
That's how you started?
We should have direct democracy. Something like that, Crowline?
I mean, it starts with bad ideas, so.
I think she was saying it's a good idea.
Oh, bad idea, representative democracy. Or I'll say it a different way. Good idea.
I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying with today's technology, And with all of the people skewing our senators and all the other stuff, right? Why can we not just be one for one? That takes out the states. There are no states. When you are federally appointing someone, federal, it should be the whole people.
But I mean, most people don't have time in their day to think about, hey, water system maintenance and different power
Wouldn't
line
it drive
facilities.
people to educate themselves?
No, people are too busy taking like people can barely have enough time to feed themselves good food, or like take care of their kids, or do any of that stuff that is absolutely necessary for living.
At least doing that, though, they can truly take responsibility
It'll be
for the outcome.
It would be the same thing that we have now, where it's only retirees who are voting, and everyone else is too busy with their lives trying to get things done.
I disagree, respectfully.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would bet that if we had direct democracy, we wouldn't be losing TikTok.
That's true. I mean, we could have like a different, like a system where some things are put to public vote, but I still think that some things should probably just be handled by people who understand what their specific district needs are. You know, civil servants are not necessarily inherently evil. Like,
that's why I'm saying federal level.
We need things
I'm
like
not
that.
talking state. I'm just talking about federal level. They are deciding what happens for the whole country.
Yeah, senators.
So let's
But
think
not
about this
everyone
for a
votes.
moment. Let's think about this for a moment. Let's imagine that everyone did vote. Would that mean that just a few cities control the entire system?
There would be no cities that control the whole thing, right? Because it would just be one for one.
Oh, well, no.
No,
I
it
see
would
where he's
be
going with
the
that.
most
I mean-
populous
But it'd just be one for
places
one.
have the most people.
Fake news.
So that's how that
But
goes.
it would still just be one for one.
Right. So there's vast swaths of the country that have problems that need to be attended to, that don't have the population density to get the attention for those problems.
Right.
So how would you make sure that this economically disadvantaged minority, which in just about every country, the big port cities have power, by the way, that's another kind of privilege, coastal privilege, over the inland people who are generally lower paid farmers. So how do you overcome that kind of privilege to make sure that there's representation, or at very least you're not ignoring the people on the inside with a direct democracy? I mean, I would say we've over adjusted for sure here, but
Just federally, your state, your community, your town, your parish, it doesn't matter. It's all a moot point when you go federal.
Well, I mean, they are still voting on the same things, the Senate and the House. The Senate, if you're saying that the Senate is the federal body, like, it would still be the same stuff. Like, that the individuals, like...
I'm going to Rick's room.
Yeah.
There's room for both of it.
Yeah, it still would be very detailed things. That, not only that, but national security... I hate to be that person to say that national security is an issue, to where it's like you can't really say everything. There are senators and House members do get security clearances to be able to see different standings around the world, to be able to make decisions on things. I mean, I think that's their excuse, though. That's dumb. Never mind.
it's good to work out
though,
these conversations.
Federally, in my lifetime, 2 people have been bypassed as being president because of the Electoral College.
Yeah, we should get rid of the Electoral College.
They got the popular vote, but the Electoral College brought them in. 2 times in my lifetime. How is that right?
I think that's a really good point, right? The president, if the president is supposed to be the representative of the states, if the president's supposed to be the
country.
representative of the Senate and the House, then the system makes sense as it is, because we have points based on Senate and House members. But if the president's supposed to be the president of the country, then the president should be elected through direct democracy. So, how for that level, well, let's make this your argument. Since the president represents all
People are more likely to get involved with their city and state government than federal. And let's be honest, there's a ton of people that have been taught via their parents or via themselves where they have voted again and again, and they never... It just doesn't matter. If you are taught that your voice no longer matters, why even do it?
Right.
It's a waste of time.
Don't you vote for your senators? And your voice is their voice in at the federal level. So you do vote. You do have a voice.
Right. So the reason what Crowline's pointing out is
totally
that people
agree.
feel like they don't have a voice. It's learned helplessness, right?
Yeah.
One of those mistakes in thinking that we go over, where you just believe that what you do won't make a difference because it never has.
Right.
Except the stonemason strikes at the stone 99 times without anything happening until the 100th time and the stone cracks. So the fact is, nothing ever works until it does.
Right. But if you're a generational person where your grandparents tried to, your parents tried to, and now it's your turn, you're just going to be like, because you were not taught that your voice actually does matter. Even if you do not win, your voice matters. And then there's a lot of people, like my company, we have federal election days off. But there are so many people that would have to take the day off that literally just can't do it. And I know it's early voting and all that, but let's say you're a single mother, you're working 2 or 3 jobs. Who has the time or energy? And then you're taught that your voice doesn't matter? Fork it. Right?
Yeah, yeah. Which is exactly why we see that you would expect that which the average person wants would get through. But there's no predictive validity. You cannot figure out whether something will pass or not based on what the people want. But you can predict 80% of what will pass based on what the top 20% want. Because that top 20% can say, oh, I'm taking the day off. I'm going to go vote.
Sure. Hey, side note, thank you for helping me think about my issue in a different perspective. 'Cause that's absolutely what it is. It's not... Well, it is a proportion problem, right? Like some states that fewer people have a higher whatever.
Population?
But the fact is, population. Not even a higher population. They have their proportion of whatever. Anyway,
Sanders.
Maybe certain states we should have maybe more states, right? The states should make more sense.
Or fewer. You could merge a few of those way out west states that have nearly no one in them until you get something the size of California again, but like with a population of, I don't know, let's say at least Pennsylvania.
Right.
I mean, if we're talking about voting for a president, why are there swing states? If this was really working, why is it only certain states that you know are going to bring it
that's
in?
Another point, Crowline. If we just required those electoral college votes,
and manipulate people into doing.
Yeah, the point is that we have. Yeah, the point is that there's more representation, right? The number of points per state is the number of senators plus the number of representatives.
Totally get that.
But one way to make it more representative within each state would just be proportionally. Right, whatever proportion went for whichever candidate, that's how many of those electoral college votes would go in that way. Because the most disenfranchised voter in America is the Republican who lives in California. Their vote for president, they are the largest group of people who voted for Donald Trump in 2020, California Republicans, and they got 0 votes. And that's not okay.
I mean, doesn't that show the fallacy of the system, though?
Exactly, exactly. All right, now here's the question. Am I tired, or are we going to talk to Noah?
Here we go.
I'm mostly just listening. Let's see, had like a.
Hey, Noah, did you see what we're doing with the ruler system and talking about emotions?
No, I didn't get a chance to see that.
Let's tell you all about it. So ruler, this was come up with by an educational psychologist, and he used this system. He had 6,000 people in his study, teachers and students, and he brought students who had a 30% graduation rate, a population with a 30% graduation rate to an 80% graduation rate. And this is how it works. He said, well, first you need to recognize that you're having an emotion, right? Actually notice that something's going on. Second, you need to understand where it's coming from, because emotions are in our body. So what part of your body is feeling what for that emotion? Then you need to label it, and here's a chart. So you could say, okay, this is high energy, low energy, unpleasant to pleasant. So those are the emotions. Now, where on this chart am I feeling? How can I label it? How can I put a word to it? Then express it. Share it with other people, because emotions are socially embedded. And then regulate it. That is, if I'm already feeling irritated and I'm towards angry, how do I tone that down to bring myself back to irritated? How do I keep myself just at peeved if things aren't working well? And there are ways to do that. You can set boundaries with another person. If they keep stepping on your feet, you say, hey, you gotta stop stepping on my feet. If you keep stepping on their feet, you say, hey, we gotta do something so I'm not stepping on your feet. And then you hold to those boundaries, because if you're dancing and someone just keeps stepping on your feet, you need to stop dancing with that partner. So that's how you do it interpersonally. When it comes to your own emotions, you can focus on your breathing. You can notice what you can see, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste, and just ground yourself in your body again to bring yourself back to center. Because so often these very high emotions are getting up in our own head and not even noticing what our body's doing. So those are some things that we can do to bring ourselves back down. Recognize that we're having an emotion. Understand it, like high energy, low energy, unpleasant, pleasant. Label it, like have this vocabulary. The more we have as many emotions as we have words to describe them. So as we learn more vocabulary words where we can say, I'm starting to feel irritated before we get to furious, we can stop ourselves from getting to furious and pull back, right? So recognize, understand, label. Yeah, so I have put it into practice in my own home. I teach it to my students, and it's also being taught in other parts of the university as well, along with the person who put this together in his book, Permission to Feel. It's being spread as an anti-bullying initiative and a graduation initiative. It's really, really improving the lives of students and teachers who are having a hard time with those students by being able to talk. And it's because we have this system of what it looks like to be a man, this patriarchy, that tells us men are only allowed to feel angry and horny. You got any other feelings than angry, it has to go through sex. And this is broken. If you're a man that's had a family, you know that sex isn't the end of emotions. And if you're being asked to be stoic or angry all the time, you're not fully present. And for young men, they think, oh, sex is the one thing I need. That's what I need so I can have emotions. Like, that's the only outlet they're allowed. But if they were able to express themselves, they wouldn't have such problems psychologically. So we can help young men, we can help older men, we can help women by not being as patriarchal and instead having a whole self and living with our partners in that way. Of course, women are patriarchal too. We all live in a system of patriarchy, so often they will also perpetuate, you need to be a stoic man. Often they'll cry if a man starts sharing emotions. And we need a system that allows women also to grow out of this patriarchal system and recognize emotions. So, ruler, R-U-L-E-R, recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate.
Also, hey, Dad.
So, Dr. Sayers, you do personally apply this yourself. So, if I mention one of these coordinates, you would have an idea of how far you are into the unpleasant, etc.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
so, if I said glum, you have an idea of where
Yep.
where would you want to be from glum? You just
If I
realize
was-
you were glum.
I try and bring myself to sad, right? I would try and bring myself into the first, not the center circle, because I'm all the way outside of the next set of squares, right? So anytime I'm past those first two set of squares, I try and bring myself to something that I can handle. That's in that first set of squares. That said,
how do you do so?
Okay. Let's say with glum. What am I glum about? Okay, I'm glum about this thing that disappointed me. Oh, okay. And why am I disappointed? Because this thing that happened actually made me feel uneasy. Okay. So I have this uneasy feeling because I was peeved about this thing. And so I'd start talking to myself backwards, back to the center, working in that way.
Okay.
And I would start noticing my emotions, talking to the people around me about how I was feeling about that, and trying to work back.
Like a post-mortem about your emotional
I got
state in the
a
moment.
question. And maybe I'm just nitpicking here, but why is at ease 2 points more energy than chill?
That's a great question. I didn't make the chart, bro.
Oh, fair enough.
I think we're missing the point. I think we're missing the point.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm dealing with this too pointedly.
Well, because
I need
at
wave.
But in this case, the idea is that pleasant is just at ease is just after pleasant, right? And it's okay, so it's just a lower energy, closer, a little bit pleasant, right? See how the axis is called pleasant, but the center is called pleasant as well? Yeah.
So it's more. It would be
can I
more.
ask you a question about this? I think you'd agree that it's okay to momentarily be at the far end of the spectrum enraged. That's
all
okay
emotions.
to be there.
All emotions have a time and place, but at the extreme end is where we get the least capable of thinking clearly, and that's what's so dangerous about it.
So
right,
I guess
let's
my
just take a look
concern is to make something a scientific process out of something that may not be scientific completely in nature. If we're allowed to be enraged for a moment of time, then who decides how long is appropriate?
I'm enraged now
to
listening
be,
to
to
you.
be enraged. I mean, you could put him at
okay, so let's drop it rage. No, take a look.
angry
Get outside of the red real quick, right? Because that's where patriarchy pushes us. Let's do the pleasant side, right? Pleasant, happy, enthusiastic, inspired, ecstatic. You would think being inspired and ecstatic are good things, right? Except the kind of person who gets you whipped up into an ecstatic state is also the kind of person who can rip a few $100 out of your wallet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the same
drugs
kind
as
of
well would keep you pretty blissful.
Which is a real problem, right? It's not going to stay. The hedonic treadmill doesn't keep going. Same thing. If you're at the level of enraged, if you're panicked, if you're livid, there's really big problems going on, and you're not able to think clearly to deal with your problems. Very often, people who get too angry even are there not because they're dealing with a problem, but because it's the only way they know to deal with a problem. If you rolled it back to irritated, you'd be able to think more clearly about your issue. And if you were a real professional, you'd bring it to simply peeved and get really, really thoughtful about what you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable to be enraged, like if somebody like hits your car and your car rolls over or something like that. That's absolutely acceptable to have that feeling. It's that, okay, after that's done, okay, I need to get more calm so I can better think about the situation. And then
if someone
go
steals your
slightly
daughter, you don't scream at them. You explain to them calmly that you have a very specific set of skills.
Yes.
Yeah, I would shiv them.
But yeah,
Right.
as Elder was talking about what the difference between at ease and chill is that
I was
there
being
is.
pedantic.
I no, but the way
I was
the chart
being point-dantic.
it
Right.
was that it's more energetic. See, as
Yes.
you get more to the right, you're getting more energetic.
So on the opposite end of the spectrum, something that's green and looking positive like comfy, we should look at that state of being as something that we should get out of that comfort zone and work our way in kind of a back and forth where we're not just always comfortable. Maybe we should get irritated.
If you're comfy and carefree and cozy and serene, again, at those points, maybe that's a state that you've worked towards through meditation, but is that the life that you want to live?
Yeah, serene
How do you
and
take
despondent
responsibility?
are very similar.
Yeah. And right. And when you're super high energy, it's easy to flip from high energy pleasant to high energy unpleasant. Same thing when you're in super low energy. It's easy to flip from pleasant to unpleasant. So if you want to have a better life, then and there's a lot of people who get to a point of serenity and it leads straight into despair. Sorry if I'm missing out on hands up.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, very soon. Were there hands up that we want to address?
No, you actually. I was going to make a point, but you actually clarified.
I'm talking too much. All right.
I mean, at the end of the day, though, going through these steps and sharing your discontent for whatever reason, you're still not just owning your feelings. Because at the end of the day, like I said, I think it's thinking about your day and where you are in your headspace and thinking about intent. If I shared everything that bugs the shit out of me, my lord, I'd be in a straitjacket, right?
Well, or
so I have to
if-
filter it and think of people's intent, my day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And if you're feeling like angry or furious, right, it's going to be hard to think from someone else's perspective. So you have
it takes training.
Mm-hmm. All of
yeah.
this
Very
takes training.
intentionally.
Yes, but even knowing, and this is the thing, even knowing that you can stop and relabel your emotions and work through them works to help people dramatically. And then we can talk about mistakes in thinking, but we can't talk about mistakes in thinking until we're thinking. And we're only really thinking in that center 4 squares, maybe the next set of squares out. After that, our thinking is so askew from our emotions, we can't really make cogent arguments unless we've made them well before and we're just yelling them at people.
But you can if you kind of change your way of thinking. There's
well-
very few people that annoy other people intentionally.
Yeah, I'm like one of them.
We got one in here right now, so.
Thank you, Hollywood.
It's not intentional, Hollywood.
Oh my God! How is that the most grating thing I could possibly hear? I don't get it. Oh my gosh.
But
So,
also,
Noah,
for some of these people that are looking at the chart, it's like if you're only looking at the chart when you're in the top red section, you're just going to be anxious every time. And it's like, yeah, that's probably not the best way to go about it. Yeah.
Right.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, it's right. Yeah. So if you can tell other people about this, learn about this chart, let's make sure we put this back up in Discord so that people
Yeah,
can see it.
I'm actually
download it, share it.
Maybe tonight or tomorrow I'll make the
Get
same
on the website.
slides.
Yeah.
Because I just need to I need to write down what ruler is, because that is not sticking even a little.
I think I wrote a whole thing about it in the Discord.
Yeah,
the
I'll take
system
some of that.
recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate. Ruler.
So what's
And you
what's
said
the
you-
worst emotion on here?
The worst
Despair
emotion?
or enraged.
Repulsed. I think repulsed is the worst emotion.
Where is shame on here?
Despair is pretty bad.
Really?
So guilt and shame have different psychological dimensions. They aren't usually put in this, but it is an emotional response. And guilt is understood to be a bad feeling that you did something wrong. And shame is a feeling that if you did something wrong, you would be a bad person. So you can't possibly admit to doing it. But if you did do it, it wasn't you that did it. It was them or something you can't control. And so you hide it, and then you blame something else other than your own agency. So shame's super, super problematic because it leads to spousal abuse, drug abuse, criminal recidivism, and suicide.
Yeah, I'd say it's like
Unless
a
you're
mixture
rich.
of disappointed in
Elon Musk,
yourself.
you have no shame.
and despair.
Yeah, but I would say repulsed is my least favorite up here because I think of that sort of angry disgust as the source of hate. And because if you're enraged, you probably so high intensity that it's going to come back down. But if you're just repulsed, you're at this level of hatred that's enough to dehumanize, but also not so much that you can't keep it up.
I would agree with that. I think that whole column to the left in the red is the root.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
And
they
as
needed a
someone's-
filler for Morose.
Morose?
Doesn't the blue column kind of, isn't that what comes before the red column? Like the kid was bullied in school, and then that's why he ends up enraged.
Well, very often, Noah, men will express their sadness through anger because they're allowed to be angry and not allowed to be sad.
Yeah.
Now, it's the system of patriarchy where men are supposed to be strong and stoic and express themselves through anger and sex. And that is a sad and anemic emotional world to live. It's a very meaningless life. It's very sad.
I think it's like lack of connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have connection, that means so much, right?
Yeah, I mean, the fourth column in the red, anxious, worried, irritated, annoyed. I mean, that's all. No one's, no one's going to, connect with you if you're irritated, worried, anxious, and annoyed.
Yeah, and a lot of young men. Yeah. Yeah, a
But
lot
you
of young
find your
men
tribe with that too, right? That's why people with addictions seek out people as well, because they're craving connection, although intuitively they know that it's wrong and there's not any true connection.
Also, that's a lot of the reason that people get radicalized. Like, even in these rooms, they'll be like, well, we're all angry at a certain group. Let's watch videos of this certain group doing bad things. And then let's
look at how
continue to
close
get more
frightened-
angry.
Yeah, look at how close frightened. Frightened is the step between angry and fuming. Yeah. And so you're right. They'll start with they'll be nervous, and then they'll get angry, and then they'll get frightened, and they'll be fuming, And that it's easy to do if you just go on to X and watch black people attacking white people, which is a constant stream of videos you can find. Because anytime there's crime, even though it's one of the least common crimes out there, even though more black people are attacked by white people. But okay. Don't matter. It's not like you should compare either. Both are bad. And if you can get people really frightened of one particular group, you can get them ginned up. And notice again, the emotion frightened, you can flip the board and you can get them over to enthusiastic and excited. You get them fuming, excited. Boom. Flip across the board.
They're the same thing, but on a different spectrum.
Right, and so if you can make it feel good to be fuming, now you're excited.
Yeah, it's really dangerous because once you get in an algorithm with a computer of, I'm going to watch people do crimes and stuff like that, or racist content, it'll keep feeding you that. No matter how, it could have been something from 13 years ago, it'll still, YouTube will go this is similar to what you want to watch. And that'll keep building in your mind. Building a story that isn't true. It's just built up on, biased content.
Yeah, and this is how hate groups work. No hate group says we are a hate group. They all say they're a love group. Right? They just love their own people. And it's because, if you're fuming about something, you can become excited. Right? If you're anxious, you can become thrilled. If you make a little group around that thing that's making you so angry, and you make it enjoyable to be angry about that thing. That's how hate is formed. And the only way to
and you're finding connection with those people.
Yeah, exactly.
That okays your hate.
Yeah,
okays
and that can create all of this pleasant feeling over here while you're still in that high energy state.
And then also, one second.
So now I've taught everyone here how to start a cult.
But I already knew. Don't worry.
I know. I was about to say, sorry to step on your game here, Elder.
Yeah, I got an Elder Fortune cookie for you if you want it.
Yes.
Yeah. Allow them to be the chaos, and they will make you the order.
I like that.
Yep. I like that.
Alright.
You're going to be in chaos for the next 4 years.
I disagree, though, because you make your own order, right? You choose that.
Yeah. I was going to say that, just back on the other topic, again, just real quick before we leave, if we do. Frightened, I was going to say, people make the excuse that they're protective, that they're just protecting the community. But in order to be protective, you have to be frightened. You have to be apprehensive, troubled. And those are all easily turned into angry, enraged, livid emotions.
Right.
Yeah.
People say, I'm not afraid, I have a gun. It's like, okay, you have to go to the grocery store with a gun, or you'll be afraid? You must have been pretty freaking worried to be, right? Yeah. You must still be worried when you're carrying a gun to the grocery store. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not necessarily the case. Maybe it's just normal to carry a gun for you because you live in the Old West.
Mm-hmm. They could just be a dick, right?
Well, a lot of people who are, just dicks are really frightened, or at very least anxious, and or worried about what's going on. Like, they have these emotions, and it's their emotional support gun.
I have a boss who carries around, used to at least to, when we were allowed to drink at work, a emotional support beer that he would just drink, sip on all day long.
Well, if you swap that out for some bourbon, it makes more sense.
Yeah. That's too classy.
It's too classy.
It's too classy.
I'm sure they
Nice.
got something in a plastic bottle labeled bourbon. Come on.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
What kind of beer was it?
It was a Ballista Point. Like San Diego.
Oh, okay. Local crap.
Yes, we're known for our breweries. The meme of.
Oh yeah, award winning.
Yeah, award-winning breweries here down in San Diego.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the Pacific Northwest has Rainier beer, so called because it's nearly beer.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so if we are outside of that center 4 squares, or, I mean, at very least, the next roll out from there. If we're
Yeah, give us
outside
a
of
couple
that,
more.
yeah, we're going to have trouble thinking clearly. So all the stuff we learn about, debate tactics and the way that people make mistakes in their thinking is not really useful if we're too caught up in our emotions, especially if we're not aware of them.
Welcome to the United States of America.
Home of the angry inspired loner. Yes. That's not what you want, guys. You don't want angry inspired loners.
You look on social media, it's all the red.
It is, and
It's
that's
all red.
That's what.
Yeah, that's true.
Or blue.
I don't know.
And
Blue doesn't sell.
that's right.
Blue
Red
doesn't
sells.
sell. Right.
Red sells. And the more
Red
red I can.
blood cells.
That's right. If it bleeds, it leads. If I can make you angry and you can make me angry, then that's more engagement, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what about women? We bleed every month.
And with that bomb.
Yeah. Let's...
Hey, menstruation jokes aren't funny. Period.
Classic.
Okay. Good night, stream.
So I
I'm
heard
gonna-
this.
Oh, sorry.
Tell me when it's done.
Oh, do you want me to turn it off? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Bye, everybody.
Okay, 1
room.
second. It takes.
Bye, Dwight.